Hello, I'm Lauren with indoorgardening.com, and today we're going to talk about plants that thrive in winter. For a lot of plants, wintertime means slower growth, no growth at all. Some plants even go dormant. It can also mean that there will be leaf drops, it will be yellowing leaves. You might also see an uptick in pests like thrips and mealybugs and spider mites. A lot of times in wintertime, the temperatures will cool, there will be a lot less light, and this can be really hard on plants, especially indoor plants that don't get very much light already. But for some plants, they remain pretty unfazed, and some of these plants even thrive. Next up is succulents. I know this may come as a surprise and a shock because succulents are always touted as like California plants. Plants that want high heat and they want a lot of light, and these are both things that winter does not offer. There are succulents out there like the hens and chicks that do not care if it's cold, and they're going to continue to grow whether they have a lot of light or not. There are a lot of succulents out there that will continue to grow in the wintertime. They will just get leggy. You may have to propagate them in the springtime, but you're going to have a lot more to propagate, so you'll have a lot more plants later too. To combat the legginess, you can just put a grow light directly over them and they will do just fine. But certain succulents like hens and chicks, they don't care. They're going to keep growing anyway. They'll pop out more babies if they have more light, but they don't care if it's cold. A lot of times they can even overwinter in the ground outside, right? Even in places that it snows. It's pretty incredible. So definitely make sure that you are researching your succulent and check and see. It might even do well in wintertime. This next one may surprise a lot of people because they're known to be finicky and hard to care for plants, but ferns. Ferns are really resilient plants. They are not as wimpy as people make them out to be. They are super incredible. A lot of them are native to Canada and North America. They are prehistoric plants. They survived the fall of the dinosaurs, so they are definitely very hardy plants. There are about 10,000 different varieties of ferns. They are absolutely incredible plants. There is always going to be a fern out there that is going to thrive in winter. Generally speaking, take a look at your sword ferns. Take a look at a lot of the maidenhair ferns can handle some cold. There are tropical maidenhair ferns, so make sure that you're paying attention to those specific ones. But a lot of ferns don't need a whole lot of light, so as long as you can keep them a little bit on the warmer side, they're going to continue to grow in the wintertime. Even your Boston fern, if it starts to drop some foliage, you can give it a little bit more light from a grow light. It's going to grow perfectly fine for you. A lot of these plants on this list do not need a lot of light. So that's one thing that's really awesome about them, and they'll do really well and thrive even in the lower light conditions, which is really cool. It makes ferns an absolutely perfect plant for indoor homes in the wintertime. Next is carnivorous plants. They're not really talked about too much. A lot of people think that they're very difficult plants, but they are great for people who like to overwater their plants. They like to stay wet. They are bog plants. They are also native to North America, so a lot of times they can handle quite a bit of cold. You can even find them in Canada and other northern regions. There are some subtropical and tropical varieties of carnivorous plants, so make sure you are researching specific ones. There are varieties of Venus flytraps and pitcher plants that do amazingly well and endure the cold just fine. And they do not need a lot of light. They do better if you can give them more light. Most plants will, but they really don't need a whole lot of light. You can overwater them. You don't have to worry about feeding them. I'm sure your natural pests in your home will pop up just fine for them for the most part. And some of these carnivorous plants, they don't even like to be warm at all, so you can put them in your refrigerator when it gets too warm in your house. Next is Phalaenopsis orchids. This one kind of shocks people as well because Phalaenopsis orchids are known to be epiphytic tropical plants. They like to be in warmth and high humidity, and that's what most people think of, but it's actually in the cooler temperatures that they start to push out their bloom spikes. So you'll see lots of your orchid flowers popping up if you have Phalaenopsis orchids in the wintertime, and it's really cool to see. They're very thriving plants in the wintertime. If you've been waiting a while for your Phalaenopsis orchid to bloom, maybe 6 months or more, now might be prime time. They were probably just waiting for winter. This next one is another epiphytic plant. They like to grow on trees. They're from tropical regions. This is a tropical cacti, also known as a Christmas cactus. They actually like to grow up on trees in tropical rainforests, and generally speaking, they like their high humidity humidity and they like their light. But these plants, being cacti, can actually handle quite a bit of cold. They're not frost hardy by any means, but they can definitely handle a chilly home and still push out some new growth, especially if there's a lot of light. If you want them to bloom, go ahead and give them no light. They will pop up with a whole bunch of blooms for you. Growers will actually go ahead and place them in special rooms in their greenhouses where they can give them very little to no light at all, and that's how they make them push out all their blooms. So it's really awesome to have them in your homes. You can actually have them blooming quite a bit in your very dark home, which is kind of nice. Just make sure after they're done blooming that you move them back into a more lighted area so that way they're getting some of that energy back. People think that winter is a death sentence for their plants, and their plants are all going to wilt and die and lose leaves and not grow at all. Hopefully this list helps you kind of take a look at some of the plants that are going to do really well in wintertime so that you can have some that are going to do well in summertime and some that are going to do well in wintertime in your collection. And you can always have plants blooming and growing and doing something at some point in your plant collection, which just makes caring for plants all the more fun. Be sure to check out indoorgardening.com for more information. We're always happy to help. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!